So hello guys and welcome back. So for today's deck discussion is just a feature or a preview of a feature deck with now that the announcement of Lorwyn Eclipse will be arriving in January 2026. So we are now looking for the current situation of these cards for the standard format. What are the possible look of this upcoming deck? We know that it's still kind of months away for this deck build to actually saw actual play in the standard format, but nevertheless we're still going to see it's the possible build. So this Lorwyn Eclipse we call for this deck is the Return of Tribal Fairies. So if you're familiar with the Lorwyn lore, if it started already from the first Lorwyn, you know that Fairies was one of the strongest archetype during that time, even for a standard format. So we are trying to gauge now how this deck archetype will see now with the version of Lorwyn Eclipse in January. So lineup now is, I'm not really doing a full deck list for now, but we'll see the possible cards now that are legal and standard that may be the option for this deck. So we start off with the 1-drops here. So we have Wild Soul Drain as the possible set to fully support this archetype because they have released a few fairy cards. So we're looking at the Fairy Redemptive and Snare's Master Sprite as one of the 1-drops this deck, but Sprite might be particularly become a 3-drop because of this extra ability to tap out opponent creatures. But importantly, we need to see that, make sure that the curve of this deck as early as turn 1 will be functional and efficient. So of course, Fairy Redemptive is just not only a 1/1 flyer, but also gets to surveil 1, and then you can play it later on from your graveyard by exiling it and drawing a card and lose 1 life, which basically provide you a card draw in the late game after it dies. Now for your 2-drop, before we discuss this new card, we take a look at the current 2-drops here. So we have Obira Dreaming Duelist, which is the legendary creature fairy. This is an uncommon card in the Wild Soul Drain set. It has ability that benefits you because not only having a flyer with a flash 2/2, but also have this trigger that whenever a fairy enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life, and therefore making sure that extra damage are needed to make sure to finish off opponent's life total. So that is one of the possible 2-drops in the deck. You're also seeing Ilmeg Fairy, that is the Final Fantasy set. It is a 2/1 flyer with trigger attacks, so real 1. It might just be fixing cards from your top of the library, but also a Vader by itself. We have also Piglock Prankster, which can be cast for an adventure. So you can mill 4 cards and then return instant sorcery, a fairy card among them, to your hand. And it's also a 1/3 Vigilance flyer, which can also attack, meaning that Vigilance can block at the same time, can put into defense. And the new card, which is Bitter Bloom Bearer, they have not provided yet. Okay, so here is the better clear version. So this is the showcase. I think this is a mini version or a new version of the Bitter Blossom. If you're familiar with the Bitter Blossom Entrapment, which has been a powerhouse of the Fairies deck, this would be the Bitter Blossom on a stick. So this is a 2 mana cost, 1/1 flash flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can lose 1 life and create a 1/1 blue and black fairy creature token with flying. So basically, flashing off for your opponent's turn would be kind of flexible in terms of casting, because you're not only casting this at sorcery speed, but having also some counter spell backup. And then if they don't play any relevant play at their turn, you can flash in, and then at your upkeep you can trigger this one to create a token of your fairy. So this would be your possible 2-drops so far as of this recording. Now for your 3-drops, I have considered only this one, Talion's Messenger, as it's fairy noble that can fit on that 3 mana slot. So whenever you attack with one more fairies, draw a card and then discard a card. Whenever you discard this way, put up some counter on target fairy control, basically making them bigger and more better threat. So that is your 3 mana cost. For 4 mana cost, of course, these possible options of these cards. We have Talion, the Candle Lord. So basically, this is the mythic card from Wilds of the Drain. It's a 4 mana cost 3/4 flying, and you can choose a number between 1 and 10. Opponent casts a spell with mana value power toughness equal to the chosen number. They will lose 2 life and you will draw a card. So in a way, you can just have them kind of extorted with this ability, because they will lose 2 life in the process. Whenever this triggers, you get also card advantage at the same time. And also, speaking of card advantage, since this is probably still the standard legal, Enduring Curiosity would still be your best 4-drop for this deck, because also it has flash. It's not a fairy particularly, but being flash also makes you do some shenanigans and casting your creatures, and also gets you to draw a card whenever creature control deals combat damage to the player. At the same time, it is also resilient to spot removal, as long as the removal is not exile effect. It dies, it will return as an enchantment under your control, so still making this sure that your flyers are efficient. They can still deal damage, and you will draw a card for each of those damage dealt. And for another option here, Twinning Twins might be another of your 4-drop, though if we ever get dealt to Esper or access to white, this can be also a good adventure card effect to use. But particularly, still have a 4/4 flyer. Vigilance Ward would be also a good inclusion for this kind of deck build. Now let's take a look at the spells. Instants, particularly this Wilds of Drain cards would really kind of fit for this deck. We have first Fairy Fencing. This is like a mana sink, but early on it's become just a 1 mana cost, -3/3, because if you control a fairy, this would have this effect. And the more you pay, the -X, and then -3/3 is added. Most importantly, if you have a fairy as you cast this spell. So that would be your spot removal. For your counter spells, spell starter will be your best option here. You pay 2 for your opponent and pay an additional 1 for each fairy you control, so particularly countering them. And this is another of the combat trick effect, while also this creating these 2 blue 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying and tapping a creature your opponent's control. So this would be your instance so far for this build, and we would expect more for this to be added in the future. And for the sorcery, of course, Ego Drain would be your option here, because of having you to have a 1 mana cost Thoughtseize without drawback. Because the only drawback here, if you don't control a fairy, you need to exile a card from your hand. But if you have a fairy in play, this is just basically a 1 mana cost Thoughtseize without losing 2 life. And for the lands so far, of course, Cavern of Souls will be your best option here. Since this is still standard legal, you can basically have to name a fairy as your time, and then most of your mana fix for this are already done, and casting the spells, and that spells can be countered, particularly for other Dimir matchups or control. Your creatures are not counterable. So also with the Watergrave now that is legal and standard, this would be your other mana fix for this deck. Since particularly this is the Shockland that will be very beneficial to you. And also I think we might also consider the other card, Starting Town, though Starting Town is a conditional fix, particularly because you need only to add this mana of any color if you pay 1 life, and a drawback is that it would enter tap unless it's your first, your second, or third of the game. But nevertheless, this would be your added fix for this deck. And lastly is your manland tribal thing, would be Soulstone Sanctuary, because this is changeling, particularly because it has all creature types, making it a fairy and a manland, and become also a 3/3 creature with vigilance, which also can get you to some good tribal shenanigans if needed. But so far for now, this would be the land choices for this future deck that we can expect now in January, with Lorwyn Eclipse having to see standard format gameplay. And so far, this would be enough for you to give you a preview of the deck or the archetype of the Dimir Faeries would look like. And of course, we are still welcome for you guys to give out your comments and suggestions. This is just a quick deck discussion, but of course, we are still open to discuss with you guys what would you think of this archetype and its possibility in the standard format. Of course, what would you would still expect this to be top tier or lesser version as compared now to the old Lorwyn, first Lorwyn days of standard. But now, of course, we are expecting more of the sets. We are particularly having 6 sets per year, so with those lots of cards that are pouring in the standard format, we still have a lot of options to consider. But so far, we are wrapping up this video. That now that we can have a look of the Lorwyn Eclipsed Dimir Faeries. We'll still have another one soon, but always expect that the deck is continuously updated once more of the Lorwyn Eclipsed cards are revealed. And also we can still have some options from the set before it, which is the last Avatar set, the special Universes Beyond set for Magic the Gathering. Again, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, notifications on, and see you guys on the next video upload.